Welcome to this week's episode of the And Both podcast. My guest is Amri Kibbler. She is a community builder, creative visionary, and a passionate advocate for women's health and well-being. Amri is a former editor and stylist for major publications like Glamour and Cosmopolitan and has spent over a decade shaping cultural narratives and curating creative campaigns that elevate brands, voices, and movements. Amri's been recognized as an Adweek trailblazer and featured in the New York Times Magazine, Forbes, Entrepreneur, and The Today Show. She's a former co-founder and chief community officer of HeyMama, the leading networking community for moms in business, and grew that community into a thriving network of over 75,000 members with events and programs that reach more than 400 million mothers worldwide. In 2019, she launched Motherhood on the Resume, a platform dedicated to supporting moms as they re-enter the workforce and redefining motherhood as a professional strength rather than a setback. HeyMama was acquired by Luminary in 2025. Amri is the co-host with Erica Hannafin, a previous And Both podcast guest, of Leaning Into Being, a top 10 podcast that dives even deeper into personal growth, resilience, and the tools we use to navigate life's complexities. A cancer survivor and thriver and women's health advocate, Amri has used her experience to champion conversations around colon cancer awareness, resilience, and the intersection of holistic wellness and healing. Following the acquisition of HeyMama, she's launched another podcast titled The Space Between for families navigating life with cancer. Whether through community building, creative endeavors, or advocacy, she's dedicated to reshaping the way we support, connect, and uplift women with one honest conversation at a time. And for sure, this episode is an excellent example of that. We get into all of that and really get into the specifics about her journey navigating how she's built all of these things, but also what that's looked like in the face of the health challenges she's had over the last couple of years and multiple diagnoses. So I don't want to take any more time away from it. It's a great episode, great conversation. And here is Amri. Hello, and welcome to the And Both podcast. Here we are going to hear from moms and those in motherhood that are doing the thing that works for them. They are honoring themselves alongside the all-encompassing role and level of expectation that is motherhood. And we are going to hear from as many different people as possible in their own experience. So you can find people to relate to. You can hear stories that will make you laugh, make you cry, all of the above. And that we will come together as a community to support one another in a way that is holistic and honoring of the woman and the mother as a whole. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the And Both podcast. My guest today is Amri Kibbler. Welcome.
Hi. Well, thanks for having me. I almost welcomed you. Welcome to your own podcast.
Isn't that the best when I'm forever the person at like the checkout at the grocery store and they're like, or the deli counter and they're like, enjoy your sandwich. I'm like, you too. And then I walk away and they're like, oh, if only the floor could swallow me whole right now.
I know. Me too. Well, because I have a podcast, I'm like, welcome everyone and welcome to you.
Everyone is just feeling very welcome. Well, so before we get started on all of the things, because we have a really interesting topic to discuss today and one that everyone can identify with an element of it, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But I would love for you to tell people a little bit about you and what you'd like them to know.
Sure. So I started my career in media. I was an editor at Hearst & Condé Nast, and I became really fascinated with the idea of self-confidence and self-worth working in women's magazines. And then when I had my first child, I had this revelation that I needed to reprioritize my life. I wanted to have more flexibility. I wanted to be able to spend more time with her and do all these things. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to become an entrepreneur. Cue laughing here. So I started a company called HeyMama. It's a social and professional network for working moms, incredible community, badass powerhouse women who are really passionate about supporting each other. And I sold that company earlier this year. And going back to the why I was laughing, because I've learned that as an entrepreneur, while you can make your own schedule, you will be working all the time at night on the weekends, everything is your responsibility. And so that became really hard and challenging for me. And at the moment, I am diving into a sabbatical where I'm taking some time to focus on my health and my family. I have two daughters, two girls. They're 9 and 13 now. I'm a cancer survivor. I had colorectal cancer. I was diagnosed twice. So the first time in the beginning of 2021, and then the second time in 2022. And I live in New York, in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, it's a lot of life you're cramming in there.
Yeah, you got to
That's
cram it all in there. Like,
you
what
only
else can I check off?
you only get one trip around the space rock, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, so you and I connected through a mutual friend, and one of the things that I in seeing your name pop up and being like, I know that name, and realizing that I was a member of the HeyMama community, and being completely fascinated by the story that you tell about your experience with cancer and being diagnosed, and the struggle to have your voice be heard and to find people that would listen to that. So I would love for you to maybe speak a little bit about that, because I think that's what I was saying earlier, like the idea that people are, you know yourself, and you're going and going and going, and how do you
Mhm.
discern between tired and not, and all of those pieces. So
Yeah. So I was diagnosed at the heart of the pandemic when you couldn't get in to see a doctor. We lived in Williamsburg, and my husband and our kids packed up our bags for a week at our weekend house in the lower Hudson Valley. Never went back. My husband just went and moved us out of our house and put all our stuff in storage. So I started like feeling off. I started having some symptoms. Actually, we had gotten chickens. So we had baby chickens, and my kids were playing with the baby chickens. Apparently, the little one was playing with them on the dining room table. And the three of us, my two girls and myself, got salmonella, but you couldn't get in to see a doctor. And so we got antibiotics prescribed to us, and my symptoms just never, they continued to persist. And so I started to feel like there was something more that was wrong with me, and it was going on months and months. So I was doing telehealth visits with my doctor from New York, and I was trying to get in to see a local doctor. No one would see me because I had some sort of symptoms, even though they really weren't any kind of COVID symptoms. If you had anything at that time, like, nobody wanted to touch you. So I had a really hard time getting in with anyone. And then I finally went back into New York City to go see my previous doctor, and I was explaining all of the things that had been going on. I had all of these digestive issues, and they're like, "Well, maybe you have irritable bowel," and sent me to go see a gastrointestinologist. So this is like 6 months later. So it's been 6 months of trying to get someone to hear me. And then I finally got sent to see a GI specialist. Went in to see the GI specialist also in New York City, which is like 2 hours for me to get there and go in to see this doctor. I get in to see him. He asks me a few questions. He's like, "But you look really great." I'm like, well, thanks. I'm glad you think that I look really great, but I feel like crap. He's like, "Well, you probably have irritable bowel, like listening to your story and your lifestyle. I'm sure that stress is really a huge factor in what's going on for you. So I think that that's probably what it is." And I said, "Well, do I need to have a colonoscopy?" I was 45 at the time, and they had just lowered the requirement to be 45. And you were supposed to be recommended to go in at 45 to get a colonoscopy. He was like, "I don't think so. I think you're fine. Why don't you see how it goes?" And never examined me, sent me on my merry way home. And, you know, the symptoms kept persisting. They were getting worse. They started turning into, I had a lot of brain fog and really bad fatigue. Again, everyone, it's stress. You're in the middle of the pandemic, you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're in perimenopause, all of these things. I just kept getting back. I mean, I would hang up from a Zoom call and go and like sleep for 2 hours in the middle of the day and wake up and be like, "Whoa, what?" As an entrepreneur, you just don't do that. I would miss calls. I was feeling really like disoriented. on top of like the digestive issues too. So finally, one of my friends really pushed me to go to his doctor, who didn't take insurance, of course, and was also in Manhattan. So I trekked on back over to Manhattan, and that doctor was like, I'm just going to start all over from the very beginning. We're going to do all the blood tests, we're going to do all the things all over again, and just like make sure, cross everything off. And then eventually he was like, I can't find anything wrong with you. You seem perfectly healthy, like you're cardiovascularly really fit, like everything, you seem like you're healthy, but I'm going to tell you that you need to go and get a colonoscopy because that's the last thing on my list. And I would recommend that you go find someone as soon as you can. And I did so. I went in and spoke to the surgeon, and he was like, I don't want to alarm you, but I had someone in here last week, a 20-year-old kid who ended up having colon cancer. I really want to squeeze you in like tomorrow. And when someone says tomorrow, that is not a good sign. I'm like still in my, I'm going to be fine. How could I have colon cancer? I'm not 70 years old. I take care of myself. I eat well. I exercise. Like this is not even a possibility. So my husband took me in, dropped me off. We were about to head down to Florida for the holidays. We were going to drive there because it was the middle of the pandemic. So he dropped me off and he went to Costco to load up on snacks for the car. And they called him when he was in the checkout lane, and they're like, you need to get back, which is not what you want to hear at all. Came back in and they're like, we were like 99% sure that you have cancer. You have a tumor. We're sending it off to get tested, and we're going to keep you here, and you need to go. We're going to get you an MRI and a CT scan and all of these things. But, that was 10 months after I had the salmonella. Now, looking back on it and thinking about things, I can see that there were little signs before that. There were things that were off, but I wasn't really tracking it. I was under a lot of stress. I wasn't thinking about what my normal was with my body. And so I missed all those signs. And so it's been a huge learning curve for me on every morning being like, okay, how do I really feel today? What is going on with my body? And just keeping track of that. I keep a journal where I write things down. My journal used to be all about how I'm feeling mentally. Am I, worried about something, things I'm trying to work through? But now I make sure to keep track of everything that feels different. It might be nothing, but it's so important to me to do that because otherwise, it's just you're going into the doctor, they give you 20 minutes if you're lucky. They're going down their checklist, and every person is so unique. Your body is so different than someone else's. It's impossible for them to know what's normal for you because if you're a person who's always had like mild digestive issues, then that might be, your normal, or like maybe you have some irritabilities or allergies or things like that that are affecting. So they don't really know unless you're able to arrive with all of the facts for them. So I really learned the importance of being a partner to your medical team. And like, my parents, even today, I had a conversation with my mom literally a week ago about something. Sorry, mom. And she's like, well, she was going to her doctor, and I asked her if she'd provided the doctor with some information that she was giving me. And she was like, well, they should just know that. I'm like, how? How do they know that? They don't know. So we have to make sure that we ourselves know what's happening with our bodies, know what's off for us. And then we're giving all that information over to our care team, whoever it is that's supporting us, because that is like 100 times leg up to helping us to get the attention and the care that we need.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that cannot be shouted from the rooftops enough. Like that story it blows me away for a lot of reasons. One is that there's still this idea of like, well, you look fine, so you must be fine. Like how many people in this country have chronic health issues, like chronic pain or, diagnoses that don't have a visible manifestation. And so you've got people that go in and they say, oh, well, that's not that. Or how many times do people get overlooked because it's like, well, you're you're young and you're healthy and you do all the right things and all of that stuff. So it can't possibly be that. And I mean, I kudos times a million to you for saying like, no, this is wrong. Because I think a lot of times what happens is people stop at you go see a doctor and they say, no, I've you defer all of the decision making to them saying, okay, I think you're fine because these are all the points. And like, don't worry about it because this screening thing, you're not in that window yet, or you're just in that window, but we don't think it's that big of a deal. It boggles my mind. Like how many diagnoses get missed until they're way later in because you weren't diagnosed stage 1, you were diagnosed
Stage 3.
stage 3.
Yeah, stage 3. And looking back on it, I was hosting an event in LA a year before that. And the event was over at like 11 o'clock, and I was on an early flight. I was staying at my friend's house kind of near the airport just to like quickly get on my flight early in the morning. And I wasn't waking anyone up. And I got up, took a like quick shower, went to the bathroom, and there was blood in the toilet, like a lot of blood in the toilet. So I freaked out. I started calling my doctor. It was a little later in New York. And they're like, "Okay, you're okay. Just get on the plane. You're gonna be fine. It's probably something else." And they ultimately decided it was something else, but now I'm thinking back on it. So what happens is when the cancer gets irritated, it bleeds. So I didn't have at that point like recurring bleeding, but I did have that incidence, which that was swept under the carpet. So there's so many instances, and I can't even tell you how many people I have met that shared similar and different stories, but were unable to get diagnosed or to get care because of things like that. And even past that, we see someone and you just assume like that they're healthy because they look healthy. And it's also hard too when you're thinking about what you're able to do and the expectations that people have on you because not all people with cancer lose their hair, or not all people with cancer lose like their look of health, or with other illnesses too. So it's also hard for those people to get the support that they need sometimes at work or in other situations because they don't want to share that they're sick all the time. It's embarrassing. They're ashamed. There's a lot of other things that come into play too. So it's getting diagnosed. And then a lot of times it's also getting continued support as well.
Yeah. And so you got diagnosed. Well, also like not to breeze over any of it at all. Like it's not like you had symptoms of like, I have like sinus symptoms, like GI symptoms, they'll wreck your day. And so you're going months and months and months with this. Like and your mom and you're running a business. Like so navigating all of that stuff together, it's not like you want to be on a 2-hour ride into the city to go to the doctor. Like I'm sure that's not a fun excursion when you're having all sorts of problems.
No, and I definitely was putting it off because I didn't want to do that and that it was in the pandemic. So,
Yeah.
I was getting feedback that I was fine. So I was like, okay, all right, I'm fine because that's what I really wanted to hear. I didn't want to push forward and do those things, but it got really where I just couldn't function. I was in the bathroom all the time. I was also having bleeding then, and it was the fatigue and the brain fog that really were scary to me. And we joke around about it like, "Where's my keys? Ha ha ha." Mom brain. But I felt like I was routinely doing something, and then I'd be like, "Wait, what am I doing? What's happening here? Okay, I gotta shut my computer and lay down for a while."
Hmm.
It was really out of the ordinary. And it's again, knowing you're normal, like, yes, sure, like I'm always looking for my keys. But when it moves into a different category, how do I know that it's different? Because I know myself and I know being a little absent-minded because I have all my kids' things on my mind and work and all of that is very different from the fact where you feel like you're trying to think through sludge, which is where I wound up around the time that I was diagnosed. And that's what really pushed me to, know that there was something wrong with me. And I had to find someone that was going to get to the bottom of it, even if it was like, you know, if the answer was nothing, like I needed it to be, we've tried everything. We've done every blood test. We've changed my eating habits. We've done this because I'd been on basically a brat diet forever. That was their recommendation. Just eat a brat diet. And like, how long can you really go around eating rice and bananas for? You know, it's like every time I would stop eating the rice and bananas, all of the symptoms would come back. And it had kind of, come out of nowhere. I'd never had irritable bowel before. And so I knew that that was not my normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also have, I mean, I think too, the pandemic is such a big part of this story. Like, I think that I don't know, who's to say, like, hindsight's 2020, like, would people have been more likely to have you come in based on, the blood work and all of that stuff. But I think a really important thing to point out is you have young kids, and when you've got energy going out in different ways, right? You have young kids and you have a business and all of that. It's all of those symptoms can overlap into things that commonly get associated with like motherhood or, launching a startup or whatever. And so I love the work that you're doing to advocate for this, knowing yourself and tracking things for yourself, because like you said, no two people are the same, and you've got to be able to discern between this is just this period of time in my life, or it doesn't really matter what's going on in my life, I always feel like this.
Definitely. Yes. My kids were 3 and 7 at that time. So I definitely had my hands full. And the pandemic definitely had something to do with it.
Mm.
They were not recommending people to get colonoscopies as much because they were backed up. Remember, no one wanted to go into the hospitals.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that had something to do with the recommendation that my doctor or the GI specialist that I went to. But still, there needs to be sort of a level of this is someone who has risk factors, and we need to send them to get these tests. And I think at that point, everyone was freaking out. People were wearing hazmat suits. There just wasn't that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so scary. So after you were diagnosed, did you do chemo, radiation?
So I did chemo and radiation, and then I had no evidence of disease for 2 years. And then I had a recurrence. So I did the surgeries 2 years later. So 2.5 years ago, I had the two surgeries, the colon resection surgeries. So I basically had like 2 periods of treatment and recovery. So, that was also just like so much with being an entrepreneur and also having 2 kids that needed to be driven places and activities and after school things. It was really hard. They didn't understand what was going on. I did tell them that I had cancer, but again, mommy didn't look sick. So it was very frustrating for them that I couldn't do or wouldn't do or wasn't doing a lot of the things that they were used to me doing. And I was always tired. I always wanted to be laying down in my room. So it was really frustrating for them. My younger daughter, I remember her like yelling at me and be like, "Mommy, you're not really sick. You just want all of the attention." Their perspective on what's happening is so very different. So that was really hard. I don't know how I got through all of these things. It's just you have to go through it. There's really no choice. Sometimes my husband and I look back on all these things and we're like, I don't even know. He also had a brain aneurysm last year. So we're like, thankfully, I was finally at the place where I could like pick up all the pieces. So I'm like, okay, great. Now I will take care of you and the kids and my company and do all of those things. But luckily, I was finally, feeling healthy enough and able to eat like enough different varieties of things and like do all the things to be able to take care of him too. So it's been a lot.
That's, and I mean, and all of this, right? The entrepreneur piece. It's not like entrepreneur, like I have a thing that's happening. I have this company that is growing because Hey Mama
Mhm.
grew really quickly. And so, you are on the back end saying like, I've got to go for treatment, and I'm recovering from surgery, and I'm doing all of this stuff. Meanwhile, there's this whole community that is blossoming of people that are like, I'm doing all the things and I'm juggling all of this. Like, how do you navigate that? How did you navigate that at the same time?
It was really hard, and I think I didn't realize how, like, I was probably functioning at 60% capacity when I came back from treatment because I took a few months off, and I would have said I was at 80, but I just really wasn't. It was really hard. I mean, I could only do so much. I liken it to, like, you have a bowl, which is, like, the amount of stress that you can take in, and normally it just, like, goes in, it flows out. But when your body is trying to physically heal, you're really almost at the total stress capacity. So, like, any little splash that went in there, it was just always overflowing. And my cortisol levels were, like, off the charts. I was just, and when I came back, also, there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes in the company, business wise. My co founder and I split up. And so I had all of that on top of my shoulders. And I mean, you're thinking like, okay, you're healing from cancer. You really need to get your stress levels down. My stress levels were like 200 times what they should have been. And so I was like, how am I going to continue on with this? I need to make a lot of changes. And then when I had my second diagnosis and I had surgery, I'm like, okay, now I just you know, take some more time. I just really felt like it was the time to figure out how to sell the company and put it into amazing hands. Luminary, which purchased HeyMama, is run by my dear friend Kate Luzio. And we share so many of the same values and mission around supporting women. And the programming and content that they create is incredible, speaks to so many of the needs of our community on marketing, scaling, leadership, all of those things. So I felt like I had found the perfect home for Hey Mama. And so that has allowed me to be able to step away from that and focus on myself for right now and sharing this message. I am working on a podcast toolkit for parents that have cancer, like exploring the challenges and having expert guests on, psychologists, mental health experts, relationship experts, because it impacts your life in so many ways outside of just your body. You think about like the body healing, but it puts a lot of stress on your relationship with your partner because they're all of a sudden doing everything, your relationship with your kids, and so many other things. So I'm going to be exploring a lot of those conversations.
I love that. And I love that you're, I mean, such a fierce advocate for bringing this conversation out. Cause like you mentioned earlier, like there is a shame and embarrassment that people can feel around being sick and not feeling well, where it's just like, it's this for me. I think I liken it to like the busyness badge, where people are like, "Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so busy," and all these things are going. But like when you're sick, it's not an opportunity to say like, "Oh yeah, I've got a cold and I'm just like pushing through and pushing through and pushing through." It's like things are not okay right now. All of the stars are not aligning, and I need to stop and do that, because there is so much emphasis on pushing through and carrying on. So I love that the message that you are putting out in the world is about, first of all, talking about colorectal cancer just in general, and second, talking about listening to yourself and getting the help and getting in front of the people that can really, really help you.
Definitely. I was definitely a push through person. And now because I check in with myself, I find that I really don't get sick in small things either, really as much, because I find that if I need rest that day, that I take it. If I think that I'm getting a cold, then I'm like, okay, maybe I better schedule an acupuncture appointment. I'm much more aware of the kind of telltale symptoms to smaller problems. And I feel like that has really supported my whole health, even outside of just the cancer. Like I do it for that, but I also now do it for every other part of my wellness.
How does the long-term impact of, because of how you were diagnosed, because of the people saying, "Oh no, it's fine," and you having to say like, "No, no, no, this is really wrong." Like when something now, like when you check in with yourself now and something is a little off, like how do you go from like, "Okay, this might be a little something," And do you stay there, or is it like something is a little off and then you get down to the end of the line? Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, okay, I think everything is bad again and it's all like how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So I've worked with a naturopath to do a lot of blood work testing and like supplements for my like personalized needs. So I feel like that's helpful. So I always know where I am on those levels. And I also, I get screened twice a year on the cancer side as well. So when something is a little bit off, I have tweaks that I make. It's kind of like balancing a scale. If it's certain things, I do acupuncture pretty regularly. I do movement every day. So I'll change the kind of movement that I'm doing kind of based on what's going on with me. If I feel like, okay, I'm having some soreness and pain in my body over here, I may do like some light yoga stretching or just walking. I make changes to my diet. So my body is very, very sensitive to things. And like when it's in its best state in my digestive system, then I know I can try other things. But if it's like slightly off in a way that I wouldn't have noticed before this, then I'm like, okay, I have to eat only my safe foods. So I'll go back to just like roasted vegetables, chicken, like very simple things. And then when everything feels like it's really in alignment, then I'm like, okay, now maybe I can add in some of the things that I are new that I'm just starting to try to eat, like a little bit of yogurt or different things. So I try to fix the problem with things that I have in my toolkit. Like, okay, maybe I am stressed and add in some more meditation today. Is my head hurting me? Am I grinding my teeth extra? I'll just look at all the things that are going on in my life and I'll keep track of it. And if it's not getting better, then I'm like, okay, who do I have on what I call like my care team that I can go to? Do I need to go to my oncologist? Is it the naturopath? Is it my acupuncturist? Is it like a muscle tension thing? Because I also tend to, because I had 30 rounds of pelvic radiation, I don't have any elasticity in my hip area anymore. So I find that I tend to get a lot of problems with like sciatica or pulled muscles or things in that area. So I could also go to physical therapy, but I really try to just take note of it and look at it and think about the things that I could be doing at home. If it's more stretching, maybe I do need to be resting. Like I've been feeling really fatigued in the morning for the past few weeks. And I just went to a nutrition workshop yesterday and I was like, oh, okay. I haven't been drinking water before I drink my green tea. So this morning I had a giant glass of water with lemon and ginger in it. And I'm like, I'm going to do that for a couple of weeks and see. Does the fatigue get better? Like sometimes the solutions are simple, but it's making a note to myself if the things that I can do aren't alleviating the symptoms in a couple of weeks, then I need to escalate it and find someone who's more of an expert to help me.
Yeah. I like that. The idea of like just controlling. I think I've referenced the Olaf line, controlling what I can control about 50 times in the it's the month of May. So, controlling what I can control while everything is sideways with school and work and all of that. But I like that because it's the idea of that it doesn't have to be once you've had this experience that when something is a little off that you end up back in that place. And so feeling being empowered, not feeling, but being empowered to say, okay, let's see what I can do about this. And does this make sense? Is this helping? And if it's not, then knowing where to go and having that network or layers of kind of like a care onion to follow through on until you get to wherever you need to be. It's
Yes.
brilliant.
I talk a lot about having your team and knowing who they are because you can feel very alone when you have any kind of a chronic illness and you may not realize how many people you have on your care team. So that I made note of, okay, I have my Pilates instructor who's my friend that I go to. I have an acupuncturist. I can go to physical therapy. I have a naturopath and I don't see these people all the time, but I can go to them when I need further support. And I like make note of all the people and friends and other people. So if I'm feeling like I need someone to talk through things, I can go to one of those people. And I find that to be helpful, knowing that you have people that you can go to when something is just feeling a little bit off, I think can really help too.
Yeah. Yeah. And having, building that network no matter, and also like that, knowing that network, like that's your network. That's not the network that's going to work for everybody. Like everybody doesn't have to have the exact same components on their team to have, to have that support in place, because some people it might look completely differently based on where they are or what's going on with them.
That's true, and also, I mean, this is something that I have found very frustrating is that but it's the truth, this came up in the workshop yesterday, because we are so unique and everything about our being and our bodies is unique to us. Your care team will look different. What's helpful for you, nutritionists can't always tell you exactly what it is that you need to be eating. That's really the struggle. The same thing a lot of times with physicians. Unfortunately, you have to do the work to figure out what is working for your body. Like, do you need something in the morning, like for breakfast, that's a little bit different? Like, I eat oatmeal for breakfast, but that's not the best thing for everyone. I do that because it sort of sets my digestive system, but that would be, totally different from what someone else would eat. Most nutritionists would probably tell you to have eggs for breakfast. So your body is going to have a totally different reaction to the food that you're taking in, how much water you're drinking. People need different amounts of water. So unfortunately, it does take a bit of work.
Yeah, a lot of tweaking and figuring it out. So how does, being in the post treatment, all of that phase, how does and knowing that like there is a lot of, you do a lot of things on a day-to-day basis that revolve around digestion and checking in with yourself and stuff like that. How do you how do you navigate forward in this, like with your kids? Like, do they still talk about it? Do you ever get questions about it? Is it something that stays sort of front of mind at your house, or is it just sort of like folded into the mix?
Well, it's very front of mind for me and for my husband, but it is interesting with the kids. I think that they forget because I never looked sick. So I do bring it up sometimes and they'll bring up something like, "Mommy, you didn't do this for me at this time," or "You weren't doing this." I'm like, "Well, you do remember that that's when mommy was sick." And they'll be like, "What?" So
Our kids the best. You're
it
like,
just
I was literally
yeah.
like everything was going not great. And they're like, yeah, but you didn't put my socks in the right spot for my recital.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what they remember, and then my younger was like, "You had cancer?" I'm like, "Yes, mommy had cancer twice, remember?" And she's like, "Huh? Oh, is that why Uncle Jason came to stay with us? Oh, we just thought that he was coming for a visit." I'm like, "No, mommy was in the hospital for a few days."
Hmm.
Yeah. On one side, I'm very happy that it apparently is something that they didn't absorb too much, but on the other side it's a little frustrating. Kids really are so focused on their me perspective that a lot of times they don't even see and realize the things that we do that we're so worried about, like thinking around about the dynamic of like, how is this going to influence their experience and their growth? Are they going to be traumatized? For me, but I think that's also because I had an illness where I didn't really look sick. I definitely lost weight, but I've always been very thin. So for children, they don't notice the difference. Like I was wearing sweatsuits, to them, I looked the same. And so it was just, I think, not, it's not on their forefront. And I'm always explaining to them why I'm cooking certain things and why I don't want them to eat certain things. And they're like, what? No, we want chips, we want boxed cookies. So I just have to keep at it because they still want all those things. They don't recognize the danger. They don't feel like, oh, we could get cancer too, any of those things, as they're young. And so it's a lot of work just I'm trying to really integrate in healthy eating and a lot of those lessons for them. The 9-year-old, I'm like, "Come on, we need to get moving, we need to get exercise," and she's like, "I wanna lay on the couch."
Like, me too, but we need to
"Me
go.
too, but we gotta go."
Oh my gosh. And yeah, I mean, I think that because you had told me before you didn't lose your hair with
No, so the kind of chemo that you usually get for colorectal cancer, that's not one of the main side effects because there's different kinds of chemo. So you find that most people, not all people, but most people that have colorectal cancer don't lose their hair.
yeah, so then that's even I mean, kids are so visual, especially at those younger ages. It's like, "You look fine. Come on, let's go." Like,
You would
"I
find
need you to
that
take me to the playground."
everybody was wearing a sweatsuit. No one was wearing any makeup. No one was brushing their hair. Like everyone kind of looked this had that look to them.
Y
So I think that also is probably why. Like everyone else's parents were all wearing sweatsuits and no makeup and we're all on Zoom.
Oh, Zoom. I love Zoom. I don't love Zoom at all. It's oh my god.
I know it makes my eyes burn.
It's a necessary evil. I mean, it is a good thing. It's good for things like, community building and stuff like that you do. So now that you have sold and transitioned out of Hey Mama and health is good and all of that stuff, what are next pieces for you? What does that look like?
So I have a podcast called Leaning Into Being. It's about redefining success. It's about slowing down, which is really hard for me. And I found that it's really hard for other, type A busy entrepreneurs. So we talk about that, how these people are doing it. And then I'm launching my new cancer parent podcast called The Space Between Navigating Family Life and Cancer. So I've been recording that. I'm hoping to finish recording that by the end of June. And then I'm going to take July, August, and September to just be present with my family, focus on my health. I really want to spend some more time cooking and working on yummy recipes that everyone in my family could eat because currently I make myself dinner and then I make dinner for my kids. So that's my goal, and I want to have a peaceful and connected back to school time with my kids for the first time since they were born. I'm always, oh my god, you need to have this, and like it's September is a busy time for career as well as that. So yeah, that's what I'm focusing on.
I love that. I think that that's amazing to have, to really be able to bring it around full circle and say, okay, I'm taking this time to sort it out and then doing the advocacy work of starting this podcast and, the things that you post about on social media and talking about colorectal cancer and talking about this experience to bring that to light. So I don't think that can be, you can't overstate the value in that, especially for people that may be feeling like, oh, I guess I just feel off, but it's like after this deadline and all of that
Mhm.
stuff that's coming up.
Yes, exactly. I really want people to not let little things go by and pay attention to what's happening in their health and to be aware that colorectal cancer is hugely on the rise for people under the age of 50. It is actually the second most deadly cancer for women under the age of 50 and the most deadly cancer for men under the age of 50. So if you haven't had a colonoscopy, even if you don't have any symptoms at all and you're over 45, please go and get a colonoscopy. Colon cancer is preventable if it's caught early. They can just scrape those polyps out and you can go on your way. So I am a just huge cheerleader for awareness around that and spreading the word.
Yeah, that's incredible. I will definitely put up any of the links that you have for all of the information and research and things like that because I think too that's another hard part for people to find, in the days of the internet, how do you find the right information and how do you find the stuff that pertains to you, especially if you're somebody that, say you're like 43
Mhm.
and you things are not feeling right or you're noticing stuff has lingered on for a while. How do you get into that? How do you navigate that? Where do you look for resources? How can you figure out who to talk to about this so that you can get more answers than have more answers than questions at that point?
Yes. And if you're under 45, you really can push to your doctor and say, I Googled, I have some of the symptoms that I see for colorectal cancer. I want to get a colonoscopy and just push to do that. And, that way if you don't have colon cancer, fantastic. And you know that you've crossed that off, but then continue to push for what what is off for me? What is wrong? And don't let your doctor get away with not finding an answer for you because there's always an answer. It's always something.
Mhm. And that's the other thing that I wanted to say is the prep for a colonoscopy. I think that's one of those things that it's like a mammogram. People are like, a mammogram is the worst thing ever. And you're like,
Really
really?
not.
It's not.
You know,
It's
it's
like,
worse. It's cancer.
yeah, right? The alternative is terrible. But like a mammogram it's a couple of minutes. It's not pleasant. You're not like making eye contact with the lady who's like making everything a pancake that you didn't think should be a pancake ever. Like it's not,
No, and it's
it's like
like what?
super,
In and
it's,
out in like a half an hour.
yeah. I mean, half an hour, you even including time to get changed and go in there. And then, you get the test done and you wait for someone. But the prep for colonoscopy has changed too, hasn't it? Has that, or did you have to do the regular
I did
prep?
the regular, but I think, people are really dramatic about these things. Yes, you have to drink a lot of some kind of liquid. It could be whatever you want, Gatorade, apple juice, whatever, and you dump all this powdered stuff in there. Okay, great. So like I don't want to ingest that much liquid and then, you're in the bathroom for a couple of hours. But if you think, this could prevent you having to get colon cancer because as I said, it is preventable. Polyps can be removed, before they turn into cancer. And then you've prevented colon cancer. You don't have to go through any treatment, chemo, radiation, surgery. Like, would you rather have to drink a bunch of Gatorade and then spend a couple hours in the bathroom and then have a nap? You're asleep during the colonoscopy. You go in, they push you to sleep, you wake up and you're like, what happened? It's not uncomfortable. There's no pain whatsoever. When you wake up, you don't feel any different than you did when you went to sleep. And you know that you don't have to worry about getting colon cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that too, like the process of going through the test, while the beginning of it and the prep for it might be a little bit uncomfortable, if you do end up developing colon cancer, when you're talking about GI symptoms, that's could be your life all the time. So it's like do a little bit of preventative work to stave off that for as much as possible. Or hopefully it doesn't happen to anybody. But like you said, colon cancer's on the rise. The screening is simple to do. You just got to get in there and get it done.
And as you said, they do have other tests. There's Cologuard, there are blood tests, so you can connect with your GP and ask them if you wanted to look into other options. The colonoscopy is just the definitive, and if there are any polyps or anything in there, they can take them off. If you do any of the other tests and they come back positive, you'll then go and have a colonoscopy.
All roads lead to colonoscopy.
Just go and get the colonoscopy and be done with it.
Just go get it done. It's going to be fun. I mean, and also like because the people that listen to the show are moms, like going to get a colonoscopy is not a C-section and it's not labor, right? Like those are long-standing, those are very uncomfortable, and they don't, they can go on for hours and hours. This is a relatively simple process that is a little bit of discomfort and some time hanging out in the bathroom. And then, like you said, a nap, which I don't know a single parent in May who isn't looking to have a nap. So there you go.
And hopefully you can get a day off of work, even if it's like a day off of childcare, because you're like, oh, well, I'm at the hospital. Sorry, honey.
Come pick me up a couple hours later. I'm just going to be in this bed.
Oh,
just
they said I have to wait here for a few hours.
Ma'am, your lunch tray has arrived? Like, yes, please and thank you. Oh, I gotta go, honey. Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, because I think that it's always that what if that happens. And so knowing that you've had that what if experience, you've gone through it, and now on the back end of it have built this scaffolding of care around you I think that's really helpful for people to hear. It's not like, if there is a diagnosis, that's it. That's the end. It all, whatever. We have to see the other side of it too.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I will put all the links up in the show notes to find all the resources. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.